Hey, it's Jeff Gibbons here with another Cubase video, and in this one I'm going to go over some of the stock sounds in Cubase all the way down to Cubase Elements. So if you're using any of those top 3 versions of Cubase, these sounds will be available to you, and other sounds if you're getting the higher up versions. And in this video I want to show you how to access those sounds, what you can do with those sounds, and then also how you can use some of these sounds without even using a MIDI keyboard. So if you're just trying out Cubase for the first time, maybe you've got the Cubase Pro demo or the Cubase Elements demo, this video will be a great way to get you started with the sounds. And if you're new to this stuff completely, you'll definitely want to check out my Cubase Basics videos. And I go over a lot of the interface basics in that one, so I'll put a link to that in the description. Otherwise, let's just get right into it and see how to access some of these sounds. And everything I'm showing you can be taken so much deeper, but this should at least get you started, find sounds, drag them onto a track, and then also start looking for patches in the synthesizers and in Halion. So let's have a look at what we've got. Here's our blank Cubase project, and I'm just going to show you a couple key commands that I set up for myself. And all you need to do is go up to Edit and then to Key Commands. And here I'm using Cubase Elements. So everything I do here, of course, will be able to do on the other versions of Cubase. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a key command for an instrument track. So I'm just going to type an instrument right here properly. And there we go. We can see instrument, add track pops up. You can just double check that that's what you're doing. So I'm going to go for an instrument track. I always assign I to that and just disregard what this is actually assigned to. And just hit assign and OK. So now every time I press I get an instrument track, and just one key command that I use all the time. So press I for an instrument track. And then at the top is where you're going to choose the instrument that you want to work with. So in this case, let's start out by looking at what we get with Halion Sonic SE. And Halion Sonic SE is the scaled down version of the program called Halion, Cubase's flagship synthesizer, sampler. It's got everything kind of built into this one device, and you can buy other libraries for it from other manufacturers. But in this case, we're just going to use the Halion Sonic SE and the stuff that comes with it. So I'm just going to click Add Track, and here is Halion Sonic SE3. So this is the very scaled down version. There's a version above it called Halion Sonic, which just allows you to load sounds, and then the flagship version Halion, which allows you to, add your own sample libraries and make your own samples and stuff like that. So it's a very complex instrument, but this one is the scaled down simple version of it, and it comes with a whole bunch of basic sounds. So let's figure out how to access those. So this is the first window you're going to see, and you click on this yellow bar right here to get to the different content that you have installed with your version of Cubase. I have a bunch of other things on here. So let's just go to SE Artist and see what we've got. So now we can see I'm loading sounds just from this one content set. And then you'll see the category on the left, the subcategory, character, stuff like that, to thin out the amount of patches that you're seeing down here. Once you find a patch, if you like a patch, you can give it a rating here so that you can filter your own results via your own rating. We'll start out with maybe a synth pad. So I'm going to go to the synth pad category. And then I'm going to go over here to the different patches that have just shown up. So all you have to do is double click on the patch and that will load up the patch. So let's have a listen. And with each patch that you load, you're going to see a bunch of quick controls right here that you can access that change certain parameters of the synthesizer. So I've got a keyboard hooked up, so I can just play it. If you don't have a keyboard hooked up, there are a few options. To go up to where it says Studio and go to On-Screen Keyboard, which is Option K on a Mac. By the way, I'm on a Mac, so if I ever say Command, I just mean Control on a PC. And Option, I think, is Alt on a PC. So if I press Option K, up pops this little on-screen keyboard, which is going to allow me to play notes via this keyboard right here. So if I want higher notes, I can just click up a little bit higher. So you can see I can play upper notes on the higher chordy part of the keyboard. And then those are all my white notes, and then I've got the black notes in between. And then if I go down to the Z or the Z key, I've got the same thing, but down the octave. So, gives you an option to play some keys, at least hear some sounds. You can even record information into Cubase using this. So let's just try that. Okay, so now I just recorded a track. Again, if you haven't watched my Cubase Basics, goes over recording and stuff like that, make sure you watch that. I'm going to assume that you have some basic understanding of the ways to navigate Cubase. All right, so I've just recorded some MIDI information with this little on-screen keyboard. I can go in there, double-click on it, and then edit that MIDI information. By the way, I always like to have my MIDI editor look a certain way. I like to change it so that I see pitch instead of velocity by different colors. And then I also like to zoom in a little bit more so I can see the note names. So just zoom in right so that I can see the note names, and then I am good. So right about there. Okay, so I'm going to go through these different patches and try them out. I'll make sure the Option K is up so I can just play some sounds from the keyboard. Okay, so the next one, analog pad. Doesn't sound anything like a pad, but I kind of like it. I'm going to leave that track because I might want to play with it later. I'm just going to go through and find a bunch of sounds to start with before I actually start making some music. So let's call that one Asia Answers. And now I'm going to press I for if you want your key commands to work, you got to get rid of this on-screen keyboard. And so I'm just going to Option K to get rid of that. Now I press I and another Halion Sonic. Let's close this one for now and look for some more sounds. So I still need a synth pad. So let's go to synth pad and we'll go to the, let's try this trip, because that one is included as well. We've got a bunch of patches here. We'll try that one out. We'll double click. Option K to hear the sound. I'm going to take my tempo of my project down. So again, tempo is right here. Just double click. And I'm going to put it at, let's say, 85 beats per minute. Kind of neat. Let's double click on another one. And by the way, if you're trying sounds out and you're trying to use this little on-screen keyboard and you accidentally press a button like the E key, that's going to switch the interface of Halion Sonic. And just so you don't get confused, if you need to get back to where you just were, and so just press the E key again and it'll switch you back here. And from now on, if you want to edit it, click on the Edit tab and you won't lose all the other controls. So just be aware of that if you're using this little on-screen keyboard in order to try out notes. Kind of fun. So I'm not finding the kind of pad that I want, and so I'm going to thin it out even further and go to warm pad sounds. Try some of these out. Okay, let's go with moving background. That one's a nice one. We'll leave that one right there. Moving background. Okay, so now I've got a pad. I've got this kind of plucky sound. Let's load one more patch. I'm going to load up a bass sound. So I'll turn off that for a sec. Go to Add Track, Halion Sonic, and let's go to, let's put it on the artist again. We'll go to bass, and I'm just going to go to synthetic or synth bass. Let's do that. And then let's go to soft. That might work. Let's try this one. Too low. Let's just go with the portamento bass for now. All right, so that's a bunch of Halion tracks. Before we get into using those, let's try looking at some of the loops that come with Cubase and Cubase Elements and stuff. Over here, I've got this media side panel. So if I turn this off right here, we can see the right zone. I turn that off. If it's not on for you, turn it on by clicking right here on this little button up in the top right corner. And once that's open, all you want to do is get over to Media, and it might look like this for when you first open it up. And here we can choose things like virtual instruments, and we can see the virtual instruments that we've got loaded on our computer. We can see effects, we can see loops and samples, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So let's start by looking at the loops and samples. And we're going to look at only the loops and samples that come all the way down with Cubase Elements. And so now once you've done that, you're going to see these different libraries show up. Let's start with the Soul Assembly, and you're going to see all of this information show up down here. All of these are different audio loops that we have in this library. And so for audio tracks, this is a little bit different. We're going to be taking a loop and putting it onto a track to play with. Different types of categories. I can look and see we've got beats, we've got bass, electric, hi-hats, all sorts of different loops. So I'm not going to mess with that just yet. I'm going to just go through and see what we've got. So, some guitar. Let's make this even bigger. As you preview each loop, you get a little play button and a stop button down here. We can pause it, we can cycle it, we can turn the volume of the preview up and down right here with this little slider. And right now we've got autoplay on, so we're just going to hear the loop right when we click on it. And what this button does is it allows you to hear what the loop would sound like at the tempo of your project. Otherwise, you're going to hear it at the original tempo, which was 130 beats per minute. Project's at 85. And if they're too far away, it's going to be time stretching things. So like 140 beats per minute and an 85 beats per minute project, it's probably not going to sound great. You're going to get some weird artifacts and stuff like that. So I would recommend just looking for loops that are closest to the tempo of your song that you're already set at. And if you're not set at something, then I guess it doesn't matter to start with. But let's go through and see if we can find some drum beats to start with. So, or maybe a Rhodes thing would be kind of cool too. Let's see. Okay, that's not bad. If I like something, then why not just drag it onto a track? So click it, and drag it right onto a track. And now I've got that little chunk of audio on my track. Okay, let's go through and see if we can find some more sounds to put in here. Just one sound each, it's not really a loop, it's more of a sample. I like that too. I can drag that on, and then this one as well. Then I can compare them. So I'm just going to chuck them in there, and then I'm going to mute them to see which ones I like better. And let's go back to this one, and press play. A little distorted, a little too crunchy for me. Well, I like that a lot. Let's just try that one. Okay, and if I don't want these ones, then I can shift click on both of them and then right click and choose remove selected tracks. Do you really want to do this? Yes, I really do. So please don't warn me again. All right. This little line right here is kind of cool. I'm going to drag it in, and we can see that this one's in B minor and this one is in F sharp minor. So we need to make these match up somehow. And so if I look at my keyboard, I can see that that B minor is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 semitones away from F sharp minor. So what I need to do is transpose this. I can either go 5 semitones down, or I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 semitones up. So let's try 5 semitones down, -5 in this little information line. So this information line gives you the info on whatever you are clicked on. So because I'm clicked on this chunk, it's telling me all of the pertinent information for that chunk. And by the way, if the information line isn't showing up, all you have to do is click this top right corner, and where it says Set Up Window Layout, make sure Info Line is turned on to see the information line. And in that spot, I can go and transpose it very quickly and easily. So I go -5, and then let's have a listen to that. It's funny because it feels a little bit late. So if I want to move this over, you can see that each of these, the attack of these sounds is a little bit late. I'm just going to turn the snap off and resize this chunk so it starts right here. I'm just going to move that over, see if that works. That kind of works for now. Let's see what other sounds we've got. Let's try a different library. So I'm going to go over to get to a different library. I just click this little back button right at the top here. And let's go over to Hip Hop Vault for a second, and we'll try some other sounds. Try one more drum loop out of here. So let's try dragging this one in and turn off the other drum loop. That's pretty cool. Let's duplicate that. So in order to duplicate a chunk, click on it and press Command D. As long as it's starting exactly at the right spot, it will just copy it back to back. For now, let's just try something else out. Let's go over to my other tracks that I've made, my Halion tracks. And by the way, if you want to change the colors, Option click on this top corner, this little symbol, and that's where you can change the color of your tracks. All right, so I'm going to go up to my bass and see if I can come up with a bass line for this. And then let's put our Chill Soul Rhodes back on for a second. Okay, so for a bass line, I need to figure out some notes that are going to work. So I'm going to go Option K, pull up my keyboard again. So there's F sharp right there. Okay, so I've figured out the notes that I want to play. I want this D, and then a B, and then the F sharp. So I've got a period, M, and then a G. Okay, here we go. So let's start this out. I'm going to press back to the beginning to press stop, and then I'm going to press record. But it doesn't give me a count in. So what I can do, all I need to do is go up to Transport, Pre-roll, and Post-roll and use Pre-roll, and that's going to give me a little count in. So now I will get 2 bars as long as I have this, press this little click button E right over here and turn on click during count in. And now when I press record, I get 2 bars. And I can see the information now as MIDI information. as you will know from the other videos, and I can just press Q to quantize these to whatever the grid is. Well, my grid looks like it's pretty close to 16th note, so I press Q. That should be a C sharp right there and right there. So just fix those two notes and just press return, or the enter key, I think it is on a PC, to close the editor. And then now I've got a nice little bassline chunk. And I'm going to turn snap back on. That's J, by the way. Turn snap back on, and then now I can resize this if I want to. Now let's try another patch out. Let's go to this moving background. Press Option K for my keyboard. You know what? For this one, I don't even need to play it because I've got a little bass line in there that outlines the chords that I want. So if I hold Option and drag this bass line up, now I double click on that, and I've got a D chord to start with, a B chord, and then F sharp minor, and then an A. So I'm just going to get rid of these extra notes for this pad because I need this just to be very simple. And then I'm going to take this up the octave. And to take anything up an octave, or take it up a note, you just press up or down arrow. Take it up an octave, press Shift up. And then now I hold Option and drag this up. And I get an octave. And it's just made a copy. I'm going to also put a note on the fifth of the chord. So the fifth of a chord on a D is going to be an A. So I'm just going to Option drag this down. And now this whole thing is going to be moving in fifths. Let's see how that sounds. And it should sound pretty good. Awesome, and with the pad, I kind of want the notes to go all the way to the end of the bar. So what I'm going to do is select the notes and go over to the inspector for this track and see where it says length. It's actually already on length. I'm going to quantize the lengths. I'm going to go fixed lengths, but first let's set our length to a quarter or to a whole note. So it fills up the whole bar. And let's see if that works. There we go, fixed lengths, and now it's made all of these notes exactly a bar long. All right, so I'm going to set my quantize back to 16th notes because I'll probably want that later on. Option K, and playing with the keyboard as a MIDI player is not ideal, so I would definitely recommend picking something up. But let me see if I can pull this off. I've got my fingers on the notes that work for this song. I'm going to go back to beginning just by pressing stop. Take me back to the beginning. Press record. Wow, what a challenge. It's worth a try though, if you're really committed. So now I press Q and I can see the notes that I've just played. So now I can go through and mess around with these. To be honest, if you're new to this kind of stuff, it might be easier for you to just pencil notes in and go with an easy key like A minor, which is just going to be all the white notes, right? So start learning about some chord progressions. I do have videos on music theory as well, so if this stuff is all kind of Greek to you, then you'll want to go check that out for sure. There is other things you could do. Let's load up a piano just for fun. I'm going to go to Halion Sonic. We'll go to a piano patch, and let's go to acoustic piano, and let's just try this one. It's probably something pretty decent. Actually, you know what would be better than a real piano? Would be an electric piano. So if I go to piano and then go to, let's see if we've got other, and if I can't find it in one library, let's try it in a different one. Let's go to the basic and see if they have piano, and then we're going to go to electric piano and then pull up a basic old electric piano. There we go. So now with that piano patch loaded, here is another way that you can get information into Cubase without having a MIDI keyboard. Let's give that one a color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Project, Add Track, and I'm going to go to Chord Track. I'm going to drop this on top. And I'm going to leave it to set to, I'm going to leave this chord track set to Halion Sonic SE01, which is this one, which I can rename Rhodes. So now with this chord track, what you can do is you can enter in some chords to play on your track. So I am going to hold Option and click right at the beginning to draw something in. And that's how you always draw something in Cubase, whether it's drawing a chunk over on a file, whether it's drawing a note, hold Option, you can click and drag, and the arrow will turn into a pencil. And so now that I've got something entered in right here, I can double click on that and I can choose a chord. And in this case, I want it to be I want the first chord to be D major. And then the next chord, Option, click. The next chord is going to be a B minor chord, so I click on that and I choose B minor. And you can also put this kind of stuff in through MIDI. You can choose complex chords like sevenths chords and slash chords by choosing a chord over here if you want a slash chord. And then the next one, Option click, double click on that one. This is my F sharp minor chord. Let's make it F sharp minor 7 just for fun. And then this next chord, Option double click or Option click, and we've got an A major. And we'll just leave that one A major. So we can make these ones sevenths chords if we want to make them a little bit more interesting. We could even make this one a D major 7. There it is. So there's D major 7. This little J has to pop up. Okay, so let's have a listen to that and see what it sounds like. I'm going to take that Asia Answers and just turn it down for now. Okay, so now that I've got this chord track working for my Rhodes track, here's a neat little trick. You don't even have to record anything. All you have to do is select the chords right here and drop them onto the Rhodes track. And I instantly get all of those chords put onto the Rhodes track. So now I can take the glue tool, glue those together, double click on that, and then here is my chords for this little tune. All right. So one thing you could do if you were really not musical is go find a chord progression. Find your favorite song and figure out what the chords are. D, B minor, F sharp minor, A, or whatever. Drop those into a chord track and then make an instrument track that you want, say a Rhodes, and then just drag those chords right down to that track. Then you could go look for loops that are in F sharp minor, or if they're not in F sharp, find a loop that's in E and then move it up 2 semitones so that it is in F sharp. Let's pretend, for example, that you don't play the keys at all and you just want to use this chord track to make a bass line as well. I'm just going to delete what I've got in there for my bass line, drag this right onto the bass track. This is going to sound terrible because it's got chords for the bass, which we don't want. We just want a bass line. So all I'm going to do is select all of the top information, all the top notes, so that I'm left with just a simple bass line. And then now that's going to work with the song. I think that first note is a little too low, so I'll select it and go shift up the octave, shift arrow up. Oh, and don't forget to mute the chord track because it's still sending MIDI information to this bass track, which is not going to sound good. So I'm just going to mute that and press play. So you're seeing how I can get information from the chord track for other places. So all of these things I'm showing you, we're just kind of scratching the surface. There's ways we could take the chord track, make it much more complex and use it in more complex ways. This is just going to get you going and you realize how much you can actually do with Cubase Elements. It's quite astounding. So the last thing I want to show you here is just Groove Agent. So I'm going to press I for an instrument track and I'm going to go over to Drums and go to Groove Agent SE, hit Add Track. And in here, I am going to load drum sounds. And Groove Agent is just Steinberg's flagship drum program. Looks a lot like Battery from Native Instruments. And it's got some really deep editing that you can do with loops. So you can drag a loop in there, you can assign it to different keys. I do have a video where I'm using only stock Cubase sounds for an entire song, and I go over chopping up the loop with that song. So make sure you go watch that video. I'll put a link to that as well. It's actually on the Steinberg website right now. But with this one, what I'm going to do is just show you how to load up basic drum kits in Groove Agent and then maybe load some drum beats from there as well. So let's click on right where it says Kit 1 to pull up your patch browser. And then here, what I can do is click All Instrument Sets up at the top and see the different libraries that we've got. Let's just try Production Grooves. So we'll go Production Grooves. And then we've got Urban Hip Hop category right here. And then let's see what different kinds of sounds we've got. I'm going to double click on one. And now what I can do is click the little arrow to get to the next kit, or back and forth. So now with Groove Agent, you've got these little pads. And each one of them has a sample, and when you click on the sample is loaded up in the little sample editor right here. And you can do everything to these samples in Groove Agent. It is, even in the Groove Agent SE, there's a full-blown version of Groove Agent, and this is just the Groove Agent SE, the simple scaled-down version. And you can just do so much with this basic version. It's pretty astounding. So let's find a kit that we like. That's actually pretty nice, that Cloak Conspiracy one. We might just come back to that. That one's got a little too much vinyl for me right now. Let's go back to that Cloak Conspiracy. And what I could do now with this one is I could go Option K, and I could try using the keyboard. And I need to take this monitor button off my bass. There we go. Okay. So I can play those in, I could draw them in with the pencil, and in fact that might be the easiest way. Let me show you that as the basic way to use Groove Agent. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close this window right here, and go over to my Groove Agent track, give it a color, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to Option drag a chunk right on the screen right here. And I'm going to go over to the left-hand side where it says No Drum Map. This is the inspector. I'm going to choose the GM map. And what that does is it shows us drum names over on the left-hand side instead of notes like we're used to with the key editor, which is one of my favorite features of Cubase. It's been around forever. And let me just show you how easy it is to enter in a basic drum beat with the drum editor. So with the drum editor now, I can see these names on the left. They don't necessarily correspond with what the sounds are. So you're going to have to go through them. And what you could do is just Option click or use the drumstick tool, Option click from the arrow. And then now with this note selected, I could arrow down to hear the different sounds. All right, I like that kick. So let's try something out here. I'm going to try my own little beat. See if I can find, and you just click to erase them. Actually, I don't want side stick, I want snare. There we go. Let's go with those ones right there. And I'm going to mute the other drum loop that I've dropped in here. Right here, just going to mute that one. Here we go. And I don't want there. Maybe something like that. That sounds fine for now. And then let's go to a hi-hat. Whoops. Of course, I could have set that to 8 notes and drag it across, but whatever. I'm going to make some of these hi-hats a little bit softer with the velocity down below. And let's play. Actually, I'm going to make them a lot softer because I want those ones to be barely audible. And then I need these kicks to be a little bit louder. Okay, so I'm going to press Enter or Return to close that editor. And then now I press Command D to duplicate this over. And I've got a drum beat that'll go through. And if I don't like that kit, I can very easily just come up here and try a different drum kit out. Let's try that. Try another one. If you're really not into programming drums, you've never done it before, let me just erase this and show you one more thing you can do with Groove Agent that's really cool. So if I click where it says pattern, what I get here is some different drum grooves. Hold this one down. As you see, if I hold down these different pads, we get some different grooves, and there's all sorts of stuff we can do with that as well. But just to keep things really simple, if I just click and drag this pad right onto my Groove Agent track, I will get that drum pattern. So there we go. I've got a simple drum beat put down on my track, ready for me to use. And the cool thing is I can go in and manipulate this. Unlike an audio loop, what I can do here is double click on this and make this, less complex or whatever if I want to. So let's see how I could do that. This extra snare, maybe I want that to come only every couple times. Let's get rid of that extra kick too. And then maybe make some of these more important kicks a little bit louder. And maybe make that one a little bit louder. And maybe this one right here a little bit louder. And then I'm going to get rid of, I'm going to quantize those. I'm going to get rid of the rest of it. And then hold Command D and just copy that over. So now I've got a bit of a simplified drum beat that I just stole from the pattern in Groove Agent. So these sounds just come stock with Cubase. There are more sounds depending on which version you have, but there's so much content in here that there's no reason you can't start making music right away with even the simplest version of Cubase. Once you've got all of your different sounds in there, of course you're going to want to start mixing. So if you press F3, that'll pop up the mixer. I like using the mixer in its own window, but it is possible to use the mixer in the lower zone. All you have to do is click this little lower zone button, or it's Command Option B as the key command. And down below I see the editor for what I've got selected, but if I just choose Mix Console, I'll see the mixer down below as well. So Command Option B or F3 to see it on its own. So there's the mixer, and of course now I can go in and start doing some things like panning some of these instruments so that they're not all right in the middle, change the levels. I can hit the E button for them and start doing things like EQ and all of that good stuff. So, and of course I go into detail on some of these in the Cubase Basics videos. I've got 3 of them up already and more to come. So that should give you a good start, a good understanding of what you've got with the things that come with Cubase. There are other things as well. We've got some virtual instruments we didn't look at, some synthesizers and stuff like that. But as you can see, there's a lot of content that comes with Cubase, even in some of the lowest versions of Cubase. So anyways, I've got a lot more Cubase videos for you to check out and more coming. Maybe I'll dig into some of the complexities of these simple instruments in future videos. So hit the subscribe button, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.